I've had a chance today to do a bit of testing to get to the bottom of a particular issue I have with my AV setup here at my home office. You might have spotted it already, actually. It's quite subtle, but it is enough that once you do see it, it's incredibly irritating. It's the fact that there's a bit of a delay between what I say and the video, i.e., the video is lagging by, well, it's actually about a quarter of a second I've calculated it as, which is just enough to be annoying. So let's not subject you to it any longer. Of course, I can fix that in post, and so now, when I speak, my speech is correctly lined up with what my mouth is doing in the camera. Now, the delay is there. Well, I'll get to how I got to this point in this process later in the video, but for now, we'll talk about the fact that the video and the audio are coming in from separate sources. The audio, of course, is coming in from this Procaster mic, which is connected up over XLR to my Rodecaster Pro mixing desk, which is then connected up over USB and Thunderbolt to my MacBook Pro, which is what's recording this here directly within QuickTime Player, to be nice and sort of basic. The video is coming in from a Sony ZV-1. Now, this is a beautiful little compact camera, which itself can act as a webcam. It can act as a UVC, sort of class compliant webcam over USB, but that's not how I'm using it currently. Currently, I'm taking HDMI from that webcam via an Elgato Camlink 4K, a little hardware dongle that's got HDMI on one side, USB on the other. Plug it between the two things, and it converts the clean HDMI signal from the ZV-1 into something that the MacBook can use as a webcam or indeed a video source in most things. It was driving me mad trying to work out where this delay was coming from. When I first started using this, I was using it as the webcam itself over USB, and there's delay there. So I thought, okay, maybe it's a bit taxing for the processor and the camera. So I bought the 4K, but the delay is still there. And the way I calculated that offset was, as you see here, filming myself turning a light off and looking at when that light actually went off in real life in high frame rate using my iPhone 12 Pro Max. When it went off in real life, when the camera saw it go off, judged by what was on its screen, and then when my MacBook saw that go off, i.e. the signal that was being piped from the camera into the MacBook Pro. So I think there's about 108 millisecond thereabouts lag between real life happening and the camera seeing it, or at least displaying it on its screen. And there's an extra about 138 milliseconds or thereabouts of delay between the ZV-1 and the computer, for a total of about 245 milliseconds thereabouts, about a quarter of a second. I wasn't sure if it was a Camlink Plus. Now, Elgato claims very low latency. They're correct, I think, in that, but there were no details of it. And I couldn't work out how I could work out where that delay was coming from. I had the idea today, though, to plug the camera into our television just in the front room. And that was enough to show me that actually, if I just plug in the HDMI output from the camera straight into my TV, I still see that delay. I didn't measure it, but it feels to be about the same as this quarter of a second delay that I see when it's plugged in over the Camlink Plus, which makes me think the Camlink Plus Camlink 4K it's called, not Plus, which makes me think indeed that the Camlink 4K is as low latency as Elgato says. If it's adding any more additional latency, it must be minuscule, because I think it was about the same. So I don't want to use the ZV-1 over USB, in part because it's latency, but also because it seems to draw too much power that can be supplied over USB. And so if I'm using it for long periods, it drains. Also, if I switch the camera off and then switch back on again, it goes into USB transfer mode. It just thinks you want to copy stuff off it. So you've got to disconnect the cable, switch it back on, re-enable USB streaming mode, and then reconnect it. So actually, even though the Camlink 4K isn't bringing me the latency advantage that I hoped it would, it does make this whole system much simpler, because I can just turn the camera on and off when I want. Privacy filter, because the camera lens retracts and the lens covers go over it. And I don't have to have it on all the time. It can keep itself nicely charged, but it can also run, I think, indefinitely. I haven't seen it exhaust itself after a day of use, just charging over USB, but with the signal coming out over HDMI in via the Camlink Plus. Where does that leave me? Well, of course, if I'm doing videos like this that are going to be recorded and then edited or whatever, then fine, I can just apply that quarter of a second offset to the audio and video to get them back into sync. But I want to use this when I'm doing live stuff as well, i.e. when I'm producing podcasts or even just on video calls. And so I need a way of introducing a quarter of a second delay to my audio. I think the easiest way, a lot of the information out there is built for streamers, as you might expect, and most streamers will be using OBS or something like it, very likely in their setup. And OBS does have the ability to add delays to audio, so that if I put a quarter of a second delay on the audio, it would then rematch up with what's coming in from the camera. I don't especially want to use OBS for it. It seems like a bit of a hammer to crack a nut. I think the next best solution is going to be Audio Hijack, a really good program from Rogue Amoeba. I already have Loopback that I use to create aggregated audio devices, so that if, for example, I'm doing training, then I can blend the audio from my microphone with the output audio from Audition to show people how to use Audition. So I might do that, but it's quite expensive. Other options include, there is actually built into the OS on the Mac, there are audio units, basically the equivalents of VST plugins, audio plugins that you can apply to things to add effects. And there is actually an AU delay audio plugin. So I could, in theory, apply that 250 millisecond delay that way, but I don't know of a way of applying, neatly applying audio units to live audio. So where I'm at is that I love this camera. It looks beautiful, as I think you can see. I mean, I'm recording this. It's almost dark outside. I've got an Elgato Keylight Air on its lowest setting here. My screen off to my right's got a purple desktop, which is making this purple glancing thing here. I've got it set to manual exposure. It's on 1/25th of a second to match up with the frame rate of the video that's being outputted. Is at f1.8. You get this nice blurry background. And so it's cranked up now to ISO 2500. So it's pretty high ISO, but it's still pretty nice and clean. However, that delay, let's bring it back. That delay is really annoying. And I want to see if I can fix it. If you've got any ideas, let me know in the comments. Or tweet me at Chris Finn, that's ChrisPhin, and I'll tell you what more I discover as I try to fix this problem.